In today's video, there's going to be superheroes, Pokemon, and turkeys. On today's episode of Top 5 Nintendo 64 Games that disappointed the shit out of us. Really, they did that. First up on our list today, number 5, South Park. South Park the game, which first came out in 1998 on the Nintendo 64, is a first-person shooter game based in the life and times of some of our favorite characters from the beloved late-night public television Comedy Central show. The game was not only published by Acclaim Entertainment, but it was also developed by one of our favorite classic developing teams, Iguana Entertainment, giving them a potentially perfect platform to create what might have been the most innovative cartoon to virtual reality game ever to follow the graces of Duck Dodgers starring Daffy Duck.
Oh my god! They killed Kenny! You bastard!
Yeah, I went there, and it very well could have been an amazing game, but just watch the intro, you'll see what I mean.
From the deep reaches of space, a horror approaches. Once in a great while, the malevolent forces of a universe combine to form a force of evil so concentrated, so pure, that no bastion of goodness and decency can stand against it. It hurls through the universe toward its destination, the planet Earth. The town to be victimized? South Park, Colorado. A quaint little town nestled in the peaks of the Rocky Mountains. Where better to terrorize good and decent folk?
Really? You follow that up with this? I rest my case. But seriously, the game starts out okay. You get to start by choosing one of the 4 main characters from the show that come with their little catchphrases that we've all grown to know and love. Such as...
Eric is cool. Hey, what's happening? Somebody's baking brownies.
Yeah. Loads of fun.
Dude, this is great. Bitchin'.
So starting out in the game, the graphics are, as you'd presume, from the highest quality 64-bit system of its time, and aside from the already difficult enough control system in the first-person shooter on the Nintendo 64, their controller setup types are absolutely ridiculous, not to mention the selection sounds. You hear that? But forget the flatulence, what's up with these controls? I've seriously seen better controls in 90s flight simulator games. Oh yeah, and did I mention that you're constantly being bombarded by turkeys? Non-stop turkeys! These turkeys never go away. I seriously believe that in the first level I defeated 89 turkeys. That is ridiculous. How is that even possible that they have that many AI roaming the map at all times? And that's where your graphics went. You spin it all on turkeys.
Next time you hit me with that motherfucking thing, I'm gonna kick your ass.
But for anyone who knows me, they know that I'm a man of my cheat codes. And they know that this game has a buttload. And from invincibility to unlimited ammo, even big hits and skinny option, pen and ink. The list goes on and on. And the weapons, oh the weapons. Maybe they thought those would make the game a little more easy, you know, to fighting all the turkeys. Turkeys all the time. And of course multiplayer, in which I could play. Because I have no friends. But despite all the nonsense, this game had nostalgia like no other. From walking through the town to seeing all your favorite landscapes, all your favorite characters, and their catchy catchphrases. It was truly a fun interactive game. That is, if they didn't try to drown out the awful control system in the gameplay with turkeys, more and more turkeys. Which leads us to our next game, number 4, Superman. It's a bird. No, it's a plane. No, it's one of the worst rated games of all time. Just 5 months after Matt Stone and Trey Parker's most beautiful turd of an abomination in virtual South Park, Colorado, came this developmentally restricted Warner Brothers guano finger painting, Superman. Let me explain. So development of the game was basically off limits somehow by constraints from DC Comics and Warner Brothers, resulting in it being unfinished and otherwise of a poor quality. In layman's terms, money. Money and contracts prevented us from having what could have been the best early foot in the door to future action-adventure Superman games. Anyways, the proof is in the pudding here, ladies and gentlemen. Aside from the occasional bad guy fight and the few poorly constructed superpowers that they do give you, throwing cars as far as the eye can see in this gorgeously rendered box world is the closest thing to DC fanboy satisfaction you're gonna get in this Nintendo 64 classic. Which, by the way, Titus announced in July of 1999 that Superman had obtained the title of third best-selling game for the Nintendo 64. But don't let the sales fool you. This game got some of the worst reviews of all time. Literally. Nintendo Power rated it as the worst game on a Nintendo system. On Game Trailers, it was ranked #1 on their worst game of all time list, just ahead of E.T. the Extraterrestrial for the Atari 2600. Oh, and did I mention Superman 64 was featured in the Guinness World Records Gamers Edition 2009 book for lowest rated superhero games ever? But despite its god-awful reception, NPD, or National Purchase Diary Group, data shows that Superman was a top seller in North America the following month of its release. Also, according to Titus, consumer feedback, which was received in the form of mail-in registration, was, and I quote, overwhelmingly positive. But let's be honest here, they totally met their demographic consisting of children 6 to 11 years old. Seeing that he also stated more than 70% of Superman's target audience rated the game as an A title. Well, of course, there's 6. IGN described all the positive reception as quote-unquote baffling and continued to say that they were at a loss for words. As someone who remembers playing this game as a child, I personally don't believe the words baffling should ever be used to describe anything that has to do with this game. And as for Titus' claims go, it doesn't at all surprise me that 70+% of a bunch of children were overwhelmingly positive about playing as their favorite superhero in a virtual reality closest they could ever imagine to their own. But I guess it really was quite satisfying throwing those cars around. Oh, look at it fall! Just like my expectations. Number 3. Quest 64. Now let's travel back about a year to June 1st, 1998. Just 5 months before the release of the beloved Zelda classic Ocarina of Time came this abstract Iris Zelda Final Fantasy hybrid. Also released in Europe, Australia, and New Zealand as Holy Magic Century and as Telltale Monsters in Japan. In this single-player role-playing game, you are a young apprentice mage by the name of Brian, who must set off across the land to find his father who has left the Monastery of Mages, which we will find out later that his father is looking for the thief who has stolen the Telltale book. And Brian also has to collect elemental amulets in which not only help level up your character, but they also happen to be a key factor in the defeat of the game's final boss. That's right, ladies and gentlemen, you are looking at the very first RPG on the N64 system. Go ahead and let that sink in for a minute. Now let's look at some of the early reviews. June 11th, 1998, IGN wrote that they had been monitoring the game's progress for a while, and although the game certainly had all the potential to succeed, the finished product seemed to be lacking a quote-unquote spark of ingenuity that attracts many gamers to coming back to the genre. Also giving it a mediocre overall rating of 5.9, and stating that Quest 64 comes across as an unfinished game and then says, in parentheses, wait till you see the ending. Which is probably referring to the open-ended so-called climax of the game, but I'm not going to spoil that can of worms for you. On July 2nd, 1998, GameSpot wrote that the game promised to be the first genuine RPG for the N64, and that in a sense, it succeeds at least in placing itself squarely in the genre, but beyond that, well, it's not a bad game. It just comes up a little short of our expectations, its primary flaw being its oversimplicity on all fronts, and that's because at the time, and even more so now, the average RPG gamer have grown accustomed to the complex storylines and plot twists that throw us in and out of drama like a late season of Friends. Seeing that they also stated that Quest 64's plot seems skeletal and obvious, and though they thought it might have been big and beautiful like Super Mario 64, or have a great storyline like Final Fantasy VII, Quest 64 falls short of both Mario 64's expansive 3D play and Final Fantasy VII's compelling twists and turns. Go to Town 1. Converse with townspeople. Discover that there's a villain scaring everyone and blocking your way through Forest 1 to Town 2. And of course he's stolen unique elemental magic item number 1 from Lord 1. From what I've researched, the general conclusion was the game was competent enough to charm gamers who had never played an RPG before, but too simplistic and trite to interest anyone else, making it a perfect opportunity to disappoint the shit out of us. Oh yeah, and they stole the battle theme from Final Fantasy VII. Number 2. Hey You Pikachu. Hey, that rhymed! Hey You Pikachu also releases Pikachu Genkai Desu in Japan, being some type of weird Japanese pun, I guess, which is literally translated to Pikachu is fine. Yeah, I don't get it either. A life simulation game based on the mystical world of Pokemon, in which you get to communicate with Pikachu through a VRU, or voice recognition unit, microphone. A device that can analyze human voices, mostly higher-pitched children's voices, and transfer them into internal actions throughout the game. In layman's terms, you can talk to Pikachu. Or control a train in a Japanese game called Desha de Go 64! Yeah, about as far as they got with it. Unfortunately, I don't have much footage of the game myself because they haven't quite figured out how to turn the hardware into software and add it to an N64 emulator. Therefore, my mic is rendered useless during gameplay. Oh, does everything look like this? Pikachu! 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 But that leaves us plenty of time for quick storyline and some popular reviews. The game starts out with Professor Oak asking you to test out a new device of his that is used to speak to Pokemon, and you soon after come across a wild Pikachu and must earn its trust and befriend it so it follows you home to live with you. After that, there are only 3 different activities you choose from: Pikachu's Daring Days, Discovery Days, and Play Days, which consist of such activities as collecting veggies for a boring Bulbasaur picnic or something, going fishing, and babysitting some Caterpie. Besides that, you just spend most of the game getting frustrated and yelling obscenities at Pikachu because he either doesn't understand or he's sleeping on the job. Did I mention there's not one battle you even get the slightest chance of being a part of in this game? Unless, of course, you count the numerous times Pikachu thundersocks the shit out of you while throwing one of his little Pika tantrums. Let's just get into some reviews. UGO put Hey You Pikachu on their list of the top 50 games that belong on the 3DS, claiming that using the 3DS built-in mic should make it simple to speak and interact with the wild Pokemon. The VRU package has also been criticized because, as I spoke of earlier, it seems to calibrate higher-pitched voices such as that of a child, and much more difficult for it to pick up deeper child or adult voices. Now, with all that being said, let me shed some light on the subject from a personal perspective. There are games that are made in hopes of a large fan base, and then there are games that are made because of large fan bases. In the first scenario, you have to hope the plot and idea for the game is intriguing to the targeted demographic. And in the second case, you have an exact blueprint of what every fan of your series has wanted since the beginning of its existence. How do you f*** that up? There's no real adventure, not a single battle, and I mean for the most part, Pikachu has more say-so in the progression of the game than you do as the player. I believe someone else made this point already, but the point is still valid here today. How do you make a game about a card game that already exists, and a game about taking pictures of your favorite characters, more fun than the game that kids have been waiting for their entire lives? All this makes it almost fulfilling when you have to release them back to the wild at the end, You literally have to say goodbye repeatedly until he gets the point and roams sadly back into the forest. Then as the credits roll, you look reminiscently onto the front yard, reminding yourself of all the excruciating times you had with him. And he returns, and the game continues as if he never fucking left. The fucking Twilight Zone in here. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. The moment you've all been waiting for, and that I've been dreading. Without further ado, number 1, Pokemon Stadium 2. It brings me as much pain as it does happiness to be sharing my feelings about this classic piece of Pokemon gaming history, bringing so many children to their knees begging for a sequel to its triumphant and humble predecessor, only to leave millions of children with their glasses half full of milk that they left out for Poke-Santa. Why, you ask, do I have such a heart-filled aggression over even the thought of this game? I mean, sure, it's got new Pokemon and new stadiums and even a new way to complete the storyline. Okay, let's just stop right there. That's exactly where my problem lies. In order to complete the game, you have to win each cup in the stadiums, and then you also have to complete the Gym Leader Castle. When all that is said and done, your rival will appear, and by defeating the rival, you unlock Round 2. Which is literally just you going through all of that again, but this time, they may have different Pokemon, and the difficulty level is set a lot higher. Okay, so that's about as fun as if every time you got to the part where you fight Gary for the first time in one of the original Pokemon games, they make you start all over, but this time, he has a different Pokemon, and it's level fucking 100. Oh yeah, except Pokemon Stadium 2 takes hours longer. I know a lot of you are already upset and leaving in the comments how much of an ignorant southern piece of propaganda shit I am. But hear me out and remember these are only my personal opinions. Pokemon over the years has expanded in every way possible to better suit its consumers, and they've succeeded in almost every platform. But as a console version of the most prized aspect of the franchise, the battles, wouldn't you think they'd also add in a illustrious storyline taking us through some of our favorite landmarks in the Poke world, as we've all grown to know and love the adventures in Pokemon for? No? Well, how about a leveling system for the Pokemon? No? Well, what the hell did they add? Mini games? Yep, mini games. Want to get closer to the action in the Pokemon world? How about cutting logs with Scyther? Or taking left turns with whatever the f that is. So they added minigames for lumberjacks and NASCAR fans. Were they targeting this game directly at the South? Is this some kind of joke? Cause it's kind of funny. To wrap it up here, I'll end with this. Pokemon Stadium 2 had some amazing ratings and reviews across the board, and the game was bright, beautiful, and nostalgic, and at some points, even a little fun. But a great game does not a big, bright sequel make. They know what we wanted, and I don't really know why they're not giving it to us. But what I do know is that they made the perfect console game to disappoint the shit out of us.
Thank you so much to those of you who are still watching this video. This video took me 2 months to complete, so I truly appreciate all of you that took the time out of your day to watch it. Feel free to leave a comment below with any of your thoughts, comments, and opinions, and if you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button. And don't forget to check out some of the other videos that I've done and do the same for them. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Later!